Welcome! We are doing another video game analysis video today. We're doing Moncage today. It's a puzzle game. It follows the storyline of a man suffering from PTSD after a war. It is a cubic puzzle game. It's really fun. It's really cool. We're going to be going over that today. While my ad is going, I just want to address my YouTube viewers, because this is going to be going up on YouTube after the stream is over, after I have a chance to edit it and post it there. I just wanted to say thank you for viewing this video. I appreciate you. I just wanted to let you know that every Sunday and Monday I stream on Twitch. If you want to join, I am actually doing this live on Twitch. I do it about once a month. We do a video game analysis every other day, Sunday and Monday of the month. We are playing video games, and I tend to focus on cozy games, puzzle games, heavy storyline games, really any game that doesn't prove how bad I am at games and makes me like fight monsters. I don't want you guys to see that from me. I want you to see the good from me. So if you want to join us on stream, it is at Catty Patty on Twitch, and you can join us here every Sunday and Monday at 7 p.m. CST to play games, and I would appreciate if you do that. I also want to let you know, if you're viewing this as a Twitch viewer or someone on YouTube, I have another video game analysis video up on YouTube right now for the Almost Gone. It's gotten some pretty positive feedback, which I really appreciate from you guys. I look forward to doing this one for you, but if you want more of that kind of content from me, that one is up on YouTube. So today our ad should be over on Twitch. I hope so. I think it is. Today we're doing Moncage, and like I said at the beginning of this video, it is a puzzle game following the storyline of a man suffering from PTSD from the war. And that's what we're going to be doing today. It kind of reminds me of The Almost Gone, which is why I wanted to do it. That, like The Almost Gone, the story isn't like... This one's a little bit more direct than The Almost Gone. But the story is still kind of like not directly told to you. And I love games like that. I love having to like dig around and find what the actual story is. So I was really excited to do this one. I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, so like I said, Moncage is a fantastic puzzle game about facing trauma and the generational cycles it can go through. In the game, you go through many different scenes that are all connected to narrate the cycle of one man and his PTSD. Along the journey, you'll discover multiple photos, giving a deeper look at what's going on. The scenes in Moncage combined with the photos, depending on what order you find them in. Like I said, you can kind of find them out of order. It can make the story a little bit confusing, just because if you find them out of order, you're not really putting the puzzle together at that time. And also the scenes jump around a bit, so we'll go over that. Before we begin, I want to state that trying to follow the storyline based on the different scenes and in the cube alone can make it a little jumbled and unclear. While each scene has its place in the story, it will be discussed to some extent. The story is mostly told through the photos in combination with the scenes, so we will be using photos as our guide. Like I said, it jumps around a bit, especially the timeline. It goes back and forth. I will address that as we get there to make it as unconfusing as possible and as easy to consume as needed. So let's begin. When you start out, this is where the game actually begins every time that you play through. When you start the game after doing some basic tutorial interactions, we begin our story inside of a lighthouse. Just looking around, there's some important things to note about the scene. The front door is going to be boarded shut from the inside. And on the desk are a couple bottles of pills and medication. Opening the drawer in the desk, we will find the first picture in the series. It's a photo of a man and a young boy inside the lighthouse, where the man is taking a picture of the boy holding his teddy bear. In the background, you can see a truck is sitting on the suitcase. The toy truck and the teddy bear will both be important symbolism in this game, so we will discuss about that further down. Just keep that in mind. By finding this picture, we can make the conclusion that this is about a man and his son. But it's important to note that as we go through the story, these are the same person. Kind of. This game has multiple points in time happening all at once, so each thing that we find has to be interpreted in multiple ways. The photo does show a man and his son in what is present day, but it also shows the memory of the man of the story that we follow, which means this is also kind of a photo of the past, but this is also kind of a photo of the future, and we'll get into all of that. It's a lot. It's a lot. At this point in time, our only other scene in the cube is what looks like a base for a factory with a vehicle sitting outside. When you move the scene together for the trapdoor in the lighthouse to the bridge that the car is on, it will let the car drive across the bridge and go into the garage. Once the trapdoor is open, we find the second picture of the game. This is a photo of the man and the boy again. This time the man is putting together parts of a slide while the boy plays on it. We can see that the man's hair is a bit more gray and the boy is a little bit older. So some time has passed between the two photos that we do find. When we connect the lamp on the desk with the crane holding the manhole cover, we are given another scene at the top of the box, which shows an inside of a manhole. It's filled with water and a bunch of junk, such as boxes, a bike, and a spool of wire. Connecting the wood piece in the manhole and the wood piece that barricades the door to the lighthouse, we get another scene that shows us outside of the lighthouse. Here we'll have a tire swing and a slide. And this is the slide that was being built in that photo that I just mentioned. Now, underneath that slide, we are going to have another photo. This photo tells us that the boy and his father have been living in the lighthouse for years, but one day when the boy finally grew up, he decided to venture out on his own, moved out, and started to work in a factory. And that was the factory photo that we just saw in the garage. It was a man working inside a factory. You can tell that they have the same hair color, so this is about this boy. When you go into the manhole, you can drain the water now that the board is off of the thing. And at the bottom, there is a safe that you can open. You can see it next to the bike there. And when you open that safe, you're given a picture of, it looks like a conference of scientists where they're speaking about this missile that we'll find out later in the game. It is a missile, talking about this project. And we can see our main character with the red hair at the front. He's like raising his hand towards the speaker. We can make the educated guess off of this that our main character in the story seems to work for some sort of factory that designs parts for military weaponry, like missiles, and he's now volunteering to work more closely to this project. So he's been working at this factory for a while, and now comes up this basically project where they're trying to get more people to work on, and he's volunteering to help work on this missile that they are designing. When we adjust the pedal on the bike at the bottom of the manhole, it allows us to line it up with the gate at the factory base. So this is going to let us unlock the gate at the base. And inside the fenced-in area are some factory supplies and another photo. The image that we're going to get from this is going to be pretty different from the other ones that we've received so far. And this one seems a lot darker in nature. So the other photos, like I said, it's really depressing compared to the other ones. The other ones have been about the main character's life, like when he was a kid with his dad playing on the side where he worked. And now we have a photo suddenly of it's dark, it's raining, there's a burned down building, there's a military officer, and there's a drone in the sky. The other images so far have been pretty normal and haven't had much concern. And this image combined with the images of the protagonist working at the factory for military weaponry, it's safe to assume that a war is currently going on. It's important to note that in the photo of the soldier, we can't really tell who it is, but remembering that each photo we are given is a version of the past, present, and future, we can make some dreary conclusions about the protagonist's father's past, the protagonist's present, this is going to be a lot, the past of the protagonist's dad, the protagonist's past itself, the protagonist's state now, the protagonist's future, and so on. It's a lot. It's a time loop. It's weird. It's all of these photos, like I said, they're all kind of happening at the same time, but not at all, because they are a past, present, and future depiction of what's going on in this game. We'll get into that about like how all of that loops together, but it is a lot, and I am so sorry. I just connected the spools in this that we just saw in the garage. In the manhole, the trapdoor of the garage will close, the garage will open, and the truck of supplies moves to a new scene. This scene, we have a crane and a conveyor belt connecting the crane to the one in the factory yard. When the belt is activated, the crane will grab a box from outside and put it on the line. If you put the scenes together fast enough, Once the box goes through, this box will go down the slide that we connect into the scene outside the lighthouse. When the box tips over, a toy drone falls out and flies away. This is another piece of symbolism that we're about to have. I'm going to talk about this and the toy truck. So both of these are like little pieces of his past and his childhood. The drone in the box helps us start piecing together some of the symbolism in the story. So far, we have the toy truck that resembles his future truck that he uses at the factory. So I don't know if you saw that, the toy truck that he had sitting on the suitcase, it looks exactly like the truck that he ends up using to work at the factory. And now we have the picture that we just got with the drone, and now with this toy drone. As we go through, it'll become noticeable that our protagonist really struggles with PTSD. He looks back at his childhood, things from when he was young, and the toys he used to play with are all memories that are tainted now due to what they will remind him of for the rest of his life. He can't find happy memories from his past because his future has ruined him. This changes the tune of the pictures we receive a bit, as now we can understand more of the sadness in them that we didn't see the first time. So this was like a really big change because, like I said, the photos that we got before, like him with his dad and them inside the lighthouse, him holding his teddy bear, they seemed like pretty happy photos, and there's nothing like really wrong with them. And then I was just like, oh, that's a cute photo. That's great. Dad and son hanging out together. But then you find the photo of the soldier, and you connect like his childhood items with the future that we know he's going to face. And it kind of gives this like dropping feeling of like, if he looks back on these photos and he's seeing those things, all it's reminding him of is his future in the war and the PTSD he's going to face and all the trauma that he's going to have. So it's really hard for him to find like happiness in those photos. Like the photos no longer seem like happy little pictures. It's just like a reminder. I know I mentioned the teddy bear is also going to be a form of symbolism, and we will get to that later. When the drone flies away, the image of the lighthouse zooms out, and it's now showing us the full building plus another small shack next to it. After opening the hatch on the roof of the shack, we see where the father and son were living. We'll see again how the protagonist's future and past are entangled when we use a Rubik's Cube from the desk in the shack to fill a slot in the shipping container carrying boxes of bullets. As this container is being packed and moved out of the building, it's going to be moved into another room. We are going to be given two new scenes. We're going to have a room with a desk and a TV, which is this room right here. And then we're also going to get a shipping dock filling carts with packaged bullets and shipping them out. If we are in the room with the TV and we interact with the TV, we can see a news broadcast that's talking about the war that is going on. When we interact with the buttons at the bottom, we are moved to a new TV screen, which is just the SMPTE bars. And if we move back, you can see the stack of TVs with stereos. They're like broken. It looks really old and decayed in there. It looks like it's a basement. You can clearly see bottles of alcohol around the stack, which is important to our story. But this is just kind of a weird scene because all of our others, it's just like normal rooms. This is clearly like not a real room, because why would it be? I don't know who has a room of stacks of old TVs and stereos in their basement. Maybe someone does. It's not me. So this is kind of more hinting towards his mental state that we will get to as the game goes on, of just like news and stories about the war that's going on and constant reminders, and like his turning to alcoholism as he gets older. But when we move out of this, you can actually see this next picture that we're going to pick up. And this is also one of those really, really sad and dreadful pictures. It's of his father outside at night using the telescope to look at the stars. In the sky is a constellation that looks like the shape of the lighthouse that they lived in, along with a shooting star, which at the beginning just seems really great, wholesome. His dad's outside doing his hobby, looking at stars. It reminds them of their home, There's a shooting star. That's great. That's always cool to see. Unfortunately, this game has a dark meaning, and you kind of have to look deeper into this photo about what's going on and the story that we already know. So we already know that the son is designing bullets and missiles for a ongoing war that is happening at the moment. We know that his dad now lives alone at the lighthouse. And unfortunately, if we look at this on a deeper meaning, this probably means that a missile during the war was launched. And I don't think it necessarily hit the lighthouse, because as we go on, we see that the lighthouse is completely intact, which is fine. But we will also see that I think this is a moment where the dad is about to die because of this war that's going on. So he's about to lose his father. The shooting star is more of a representation of the missiles from the war and how he ends up losing his dad to the war. Immediately after finding this image, if we connect the wire to the TV to the fan in the shack, a row of dominoes is knocked over with the last one landing on a button, which launches a toy missile. In the room of the toy missile is our next image, our protagonist calling his father. If we go back to the room with the TV and we push the button again, it's gonna move to a child's program. And when we move away from that child's program, we are now in what seems to be like a group home for children. There's multiple beds lining the walls with some toys in the middle and a baby carriage. Just by the nature of it, it seems very military style. The neat beds with the folded blankets, the bunker type of room vibe. So we'll guess that this is a type of home for military kids or kids who are orphaned because of the war and their parents had passed away and are now living in like this military group home waiting for adoption. In this room, we are going to find another picture. This is the one that we are going to find. It's the boy from the lighthouse. We can tell he has the red hair. So this is our protagonist once again, holding his father's hand, waving goodbye to his friends. This is a glimpse of the past, present, and future once again. And this is of them getting ready to move to the lighthouse. This is kind of hinting at like his dad adopted him from this group home of orphan children from the war. And he's now waving goodbye to his friends to go live at the lighthouse with his new dad. We are about to do a series of puzzles that we need to solve to turn on the light in a scene that we haven't discussed yet, which is the security room right here. We're gonna work to turn that light on. And the security room itself doesn't really matter. It's more of the facility that it's in. The security room is actually in the facility where the missile is being made. The next thing that we're going to be focusing on before we get to this actually is the baby carriage in the daycare facility. That is something that we're going to have to line up with the carts moving around the shipping dock with the bullets to get another part of the puzzle unlocked. So when this lines up, you're going to watch it carry away. And in this, you can see the teddy bear, which we've brought up before. During the scene, the teddy bear falls off the cart into the ocean and lands next to a sunken ship. The reason I didn't mention the symbolism with the teddy bear earlier with the other child toys is because this one seems to mean something a little bit different to me than the other ones did. Like I know the drone and the toy truck really remind him of things in his future that are going to happen in the military. But the teddy bear just seemed a little bit different, so I wanted to talk about it separately. So, like I said, this teddy bear, it falls off the cart of the bullets that he's literally in the factory making, and it falls into the ocean and lands next to a sunken ship. This symbolism to me obviously means something a bit different. Knowing what we know, and we'll soon know because we're about to get into that, more so means that our protagonist has completely lost himself because of the role that this war has played on in his life. He had to grow up partly in a group home because, you know, his parents were off to war, and if what I said is true, they might have died in the war and ended up having to be adopted by another man who was also in the war. So that really sucks because his parents were basically guaranteed to have PTSD, and he ended up losing his real parents along the way, which is a horrible thing for a child to experience, and then had to come be adopted by this strange man and live with him isolated at a lighthouse away from the city and the danger and the people, because his new adopted dad had PTSD and he knew the war was going on and he didn't want to be in like the danger area of that. He didn't want his son to be there. He was then raised alone with his father, who, as we find out through this, also has PTSD after serving. And when he finally grows up and leaves the lighthouse, he becomes a key part of the war by making bullets and eventually the missile that gets launched. This war has taken his childhood, it's taking his present, and as we know, it's also going to take his future. So I think this teddy bear is more symbolism of him being completely lost to what goes on in this war. The sunken ship comes along later, as we'll see, and he's just like at the bottom of the ocean. He's at rock bottom throughout this game. He's lost his childhood, he's lost himself, and this game kind of also takes his future from him. And that's something, again, we'll talk about. Like I said, this game is a loop, so it's really confusing. We'll get into that, but this teddy bear just meant something completely different to me, and it was worth mentioning for this video. The reveal of the missile factory comes with 2 new scenes, one of a boat on the ocean and one docked at the factory bay. In the boat on the ocean, on the top bunk, we find an image of the dad reading a newspaper with war imagery. You can see the symbol that will later represent the military, the missile, and then planes flying over destroyed buildings. And then we get this woman, and I'm going to be honest with you, I don't have a clue who this woman is. I'm just going to make that clear right now. I don't know who this woman is. She does show up another time in a photo towards the end of the game. I don't know if she's just like someone serving in the military and she was here. There's clearly smoke and stuff going on in the background. So I don't know if like the area they were living in is in flames and she's trying to get his dad out of there. She does not age in the photos. So I'm going to assume whatever happens with her in it is in like a pretty short amount of time, because she doesn't change at all in the photos. She's very recognizable in the second photo of her that we find. So I do think she might just be someone who is serving in the military with his son, and she was working this area where the bombs and stuff was going on, and she just happened to be the person who was trying to get his dad out of the area. And then later on, she becomes friends with the son, and they know each other. We'll get into that later on. But I just wanted to make it clear, I'm not exactly sure who this woman is. That is my guess on who she is. She's just someone who served with his son. They happened to like accidentally meet his dad and try to help him out. But other than that, there's no real mention of her. She just seemed important enough to put into 2 photos. So I just wanted to talk about that real quick. Boat in the ocean will be used in a combination with the missile scene to get the missile to launch. And during that, it's a little bit sad. When this happens, once we launch this missile, you are actually awarded a achievement. And this achievement is called Sin. And its description is, we launched the missile, you made it. And you is capitalized Y-O-U. So obviously that could have been interpreted as like, you made it, like, woo, you made it, you did it, you achieved at your job, you did it. But it was very clear that it was like, you made it, not like, you made it. It was like, you did this, you made this missile, you launched it, this is your burden to bear. It's also called Sin, which is going to play into what we see later on of this man blaming himself for things that happened in this war. We launched the missile, we got our achievement called Sin, which is really unfortunate. And as we go, we find this fairground, basically, where the missile launches and it turns into a firework above the sky. We combine the ship at the carnival ride, the ship in the bottle, and the boat ship at the dock. Our docked boat starts to move towards the sea. Our lighthouse scene is gonna no longer look like it was the nice night scene that we had, but you can see that it's more of like a fiery orange and red. So that kind of plays more into this missile. When it was launched, something did happen. And that goes back to the photo that I was talking about earlier with the shooting star. We can see that the missile that was launched ended up hitting the area near the lighthouse. So that kind of brings in why This would now look more of an orangish red. The lighthouse itself looks put together, but you can see the shack looks really boarded up and kind of damaged. As we move around this side, we're actually going to find a cave at the side of the lighthouse. And when we enter that cave, we can clearly see this is where the protagonist's father is buried. And if that doesn't seem clear, if we go back to the beginning and we look at the lighthouse, that satchel is hanging up on the shelf of the turning center of the lighthouse. The camera was on the desk at the lighthouse. These are clearly the father's belongings that are buried with him in this cave. So unfortunately, at this point in time, the protagonist's father is dead. We're gonna find another picture in here. It's the picture of our protagonist as a young boy again, so we're scooting back in time, a little flashback. It's with his father. They're inside the shack that's next to the lighthouse talking, and the son is asking his dad about the medals that he earned in the war. When we continue, if we go back to the boat that's on the ocean, there's a drawing of a flower that we can use in combination of the headstone. And when we do this, we are going to be moved to a new scene. And this new scene is going to be important because we've seen this scene before in the first dark photo that we found. This also gives us a new scene as well, where we are at a military registration sign up. When we go back to the carnival, once we have the curtain of a tent opened, we get another image. This is yet another really sad image, unfortunately. It's the boy at the carnival with his dad. The boy has his little toy truck, not yet tainted by the war. The fireworks are going off in the background, and you can tell that his dad is having some sort of reaction to the fireworks because, like it showed earlier, the missile and the fireworks were very similar, so I'm sure this is giving some kind of PTSD flashback for his father, and it's really upsetting him. He can't even look at it. Now that we have all these scenes together, we are actually approaching another scene that is really powerful to me, and it's really emotional. We're gonna find another photo inside the little tent here pretty soon, and this is gonna be a photo of him at the registration. He's holding a picture of his deceased father, because his father has passed away at this point. He is there to get signed up, and it doesn't make it really clear if he's signing up like in memory of his father or because he feels like he needs to right the wrongs that he's committed by working on the missile. But he's very clearly there thinking of his father, what his father went through, and he's about to join the war. We are now giving a shooting range, and like I said, this one, the combination of our camp now and the carnival are going to be used together. And this is going to be a scene of having to practice shooting while training for the military. Bullet is going to go straight through the dummy's heart, which is a very clear representation of the war. It's going to go completely through, and it's going to go through a church window and completely shatter it. It's just a moment that shows PTSD so well that this is something that he thinks about, and it's just in slow motion for him every time that it happens. And now we're going to be inside of a destroyed church. And in this church, you can actually find another picture inside of the prayer, the confession, I don't know what it's called, confession box, confession booth, prayer box, I don't know. You'll find a picture in there. It's of him and his father actually praying at this church. We know this church is the one he grew up in, and now it's completely destroyed. Again, the bullet going through the chest of the person went straight through the church window. And this is just another symbolism of him feeling like he's the reason that all of this happened because of his role he played in the war. So he feels like this church that he grew up in was destroyed because of him. We are finally going to arrive at a military base. This is another photo we find along the way. We're heading to the military base right now. We can see the sun in the military vehicle heading to the base. This base will have a tent with a table inside of it with military maps and plans spread across it once we get in there. The puzzles of this map are going to show the war efforts that go on. So we're going to have ones where like they're trying to like bomb other camps, and it's just their projection or like their route of trying to take back the area that they're in. And at one point at the end, they're actually going to be cornered inside of a cave. In this cave, we have another photo we're going to get, and it's of our protagonist again with 2 other soldiers. They are cornered at the war inside of this cave. They're all injured. It's very emotional moment, you can tell, for all these guys. They've been wounded in the war, and unfortunately they're kind of like cornered at this moment. In this cave, we are going to line up the flag on the map with some items that we find in the mine, and this is going to cause a fire to burn on the table, and it's going to burn up the map plans that they had. Once those map plans are burned, it's going to clear up the table, and we're going to find actually a trapdoor inside of it. And in this trapdoor is an underwater system, like a water management system. And we're going to find that we're going to have to use in another scene. And this is another moment that I want to discuss because this is another important achievement that we get. When we line up the water fountain with the water system underground, we can fill up the water fountain, and eventually, once it's completely full like this, we can use it to spray over the area and clear the fire in the village. So this other achievement that we get, it's called Shower. Put out the fire, let the shower wash away the pains and the griefs. So we're kind of in a healing moment. As we zoom out of this fountain, we're actually going to go inside of a hospital room. The window's going to shut. There's going to be a TV, a calendar with a flower on a desk, and a door that we can open for another area to be unlocked. We're about to get another image, and the woman is back. The woman that we didn't know about earlier, she's here. Thank God. What would we have done without her? But this shows that, like, in that moment in the cave with his war buddies, probably didn't end up going very well. He ended up in the hospital. And at this point, we can assume that he's been discharged from the military. He has his medals up on the wall of what went on. You know, he's recovering in the hospital from the wounds that he suffered in the war. And we're going to start trying to heal as much as we can. But unfortunately, it also doesn't seem like we're going to heal too much. We have 2 people here from the war, the woman and one of the guys from the cave that was with us, trying to bring the protagonist flowers, and him very clearly not seeming up for it. Like, he's very clearly upset in this photo. And while this moment kind of has a feeling of healing, this is kind of our start in the trauma of PTSD for this character. I mentioned earlier, there's going to be a flower on the desk with a calendar next to it, and this flower seems like it's wilting away. As we go through this puzzle, you know, our flower's wilting already, but this puzzle is specifically made to get the flower to come back to life. So as we go through this puzzle, it's supposed to take a year, but you get an achievement if it takes 4, if you go through a 4-year cycle. So we can assume that our protagonist is really going through it in this hospital for like 1 to 4 years, trying to get through his PTSD and get help for his trauma from the war. It's gonna take some time to get through that. And once we complete that puzzle and we have the blooming flower at the end, we are gonna have another scene open up that's gonna give us a new piece of the puzzle. This next photo we're gonna find inside of a well in this new area, and this photo is going to be a picture of our protagonist once again. We're looking through the window of him talking to his nurse, and it seems like he's being discharged from the hospital. So this is 1 to 4 years later. Like I said, you get an achievement if you go through the calendar cycle for 4 years. You can do the puzzle in 1, so it's taken some time for him to get to this point to leave. He clearly looks older than he did. When we got to the hospital, he looked pretty young. He was clean shaven. Now he's older. He has a little bit more of a beard. So it's been some time, but he's finally getting out of the hospital, and the nurse is talking to him about his medication. And now that we've gone through that, this is a scene of the housing that he's going to live in. This housing area is going to have a basement that we're going to go into. That's going to be really important. In the basement, under the table, we're going to find another photo. Of all the sad photos, this is one of the saddest photos. He's been just discharged from the hospital and okayed to go home, but he's very clearly not okay. He's watching the news. You could probably assume that maybe there's news about the war going on at this moment, and he's just sobbing into his hands. And if you look at his shadow, it's a soldier, so he's remembering his past, and whatever's on the news is reminding him of his time at the war. And on the table next to him, all you can see is his pill bottles for his medication that he was prescribed for his PTSD, and alcohol. If we align the board with tools on the wall with one of the kegs inside of this cave here, it's going to give us another scene of a bar. This scene is one of my favorite scenes of the game. It's very interesting, and it kind of starts leading us into the look of his mind and of what things are going on inside his head. You'll find immediately on the bar table another photo, and it's going to be of our protagonist sitting at the bar drinking alone. One of the first things we're going to do is we're going to fill up this mug on the counter about halfway full with alcohol. And when that happens, this is my favorite part of the game because it's really cool. If you look through the glass, things in the bar start changing. So you can see those glasses in the background now look like bullets. The bird on the wall looked like a plane. The dartboard looked like a target from his shooting practice. And the wine bottle on the shelf now looks like a missile. We'll be able to use the wine bottle to fill up the rest of his mug of alcohol. And this is a moment you're going to see the alcohol is going to turn really dark. And this is going to be a reference to dark moments, basically. Like, look, it's just like sludge at this point. But the dark moments he's going to have struggling with his alcoholism from the PTSD. And again, when you look through the glass, everything looks like grenades. It's all imagery from the war, and it's not like the actual bar anymore. Once we turn on the TV, you can see on the TV they're rebuilding the church, which is the sign of hope. But we're going to look at the TV through the glass, and this is actually going to start giving us imagery inside of his mind. This and the scene that's going to open up above it are images of his mind and his depression versus his PTSD. This part of the game, we are at a graveyard of his fallen soldiers, unfortunately, with a bell tower. The top of the box is going to be the inside of his mind. And in this area, we're going to see, as we kind of spin around to make the hourglass change, we're going to flip between PTSD and we're going to flip between depression. We're going to find the first picture of this area underneath the pew right here. And this is going to be him at the confession booth. We discussed earlier that this church, you can see it in the scene, it's finally being rebuilt. This is the church he grew up in and the church that he blames himself for being destroyed because it was destroyed in the war. But now the church is being rebuilt. He's older now, and he's there at the confession booth. We did get that achievement earlier called Sin once the missile was launched. So we can assume that this is kind of him trying to make peace with what he did. Like we said, he did blame himself for a lot of things that went on. And now he's trying to find peace within himself to not blame himself for what he basically had to do. Like, he was in the war. He didn't really have many choices on what he could do. So he's just kind of coming to peace with that in this moment. We're going to find another photo inside the confession booth. Confession, what are they called? I wasn't raised Catholic. I don't know what a confession thing is. The confession place. When we get in here, there's going to be this little mini door that we're going to open up. It's going to be our next photo. This photo is of the children from the group home. We discussed this earlier with the photo of him taking his son home, that we're not really sure, or nor does it state whether or not these kids if this is like actually his kid, or if these are kids who lost their parent in the war and they're living in a group home waiting to be adopted. I think it's the latter. I think these are children who did lose their parents in the war and are looking to be adopted, and they are visiting the soldiers right now and giving them paper butterflies that they made at the group home. And this is the moment that's happening for him, that a young boy who looks very similar to himself when he was young sees him and is trying to give him a paper butterfly that he created for the soldiers. This is a moment that we need to talk about, because if you look at this picture, it is very clear that we are starting the loop that I've been discussing. He now looks so similar to his father in the photos that we saw earlier. And this little boy looks exactly like he did when he was little. So this is the start of a loop of where this was a story of a young boy who grew up, went to war, faced PTSD, and now he's the father of a young boy who's going to grow up and go to war and face PTSD. So this is the start of the loop. So once we solve the puzzle at the church and the graveyard to make it possible for the sand to complete the bell tower, we're gonna have a new scene once again. We can go inside of the group home, and it's also going to give us another scene of the father's home that we saw earlier, but this time it's going to be packed up. Things are going to be in boxes. The couch is covered with cloth, and the car is going to be outside, fully packed with everything. This is a photo we get of him writing to the group home saying he wants to adopt the child that gave him the paper butterfly. So this is the moment that he's getting adopted, his kid's getting adopted. Again, this story is a loop. So this is the moment that we're seeing where his dad decided to adopt him, and now he's deciding to adopt his son. When you go into his home that I described with everything covered up, on the shelf is going to be another photo that we can look at. This photo is of him. This is an important photo because this is the healing journey that we're looking for. This photo is of him with the car packed up. He's getting ready to leave the military base finally. And if you look in the background, the clouds are shaped as the lighthouse. So he's dreaming of that lighthouse that he grew up in. And he's going to go adopt this kid, and they're going to move to the lighthouse that he grew up in and raise his son there. Once we go back into the scene and we open the window, the car is going to drive away and be outside of the group home. And when we're outside of the group home, we have our last photo that we're going to make right now. This photo is of the boy and the man. They're finally meeting the first time. He's adopted his son, and this is about to recreate another photo that we actually discovered earlier in the game. And it's going to be of him and his dad. And here the game is actually going to end. I love the music. It gives me goosebumps, and you're going to watch them drive to the lighthouse. And at the end of all of this, they're going to be at the lighthouse. The trunk can be opened, and it's actually going to start the game over again. And that is something we need to talk about, because there's technically 3 endings to this game. The first one is if you didn't find all the photos in the game. If you didn't find all the photos of the game is just going to keep repeating and looping back and forth until you find all the photos. And ending 2 we're about to see, and then we will talk about that. if you found all the photos in the game, that is the ending that you get. You're inside the area where the box was, and if you look at the background during that entire gameplay, the photos that we find are like kind of hanging on the wall behind us. At the end of this, if you found all the photos, the room shakes and crashes and falls through the floor. And when we wake up, we're staring up at this flower that we've been seeing throughout this game constantly. And this flower is an important symbol of hope. So we've seen this flower a couple times. We saw it when we were putting it on top of his father's grave, and then it rolled off into a street and got ran over by a car, symbolizing like peace in the moment. But then during this war, the peace is kind of run over and taken away. We saw it in his hospital room where it was wilted and dying, and our goal was to get it to thrive again so he can get out of the hospital. So throughout this game, this flower has been a symbol of hope for our character, and it's kind of been going through it. And now we're seeing a giant flower above us at the end of the game. We're kind of in a bird cage that has been destroyed a little bit, and we're looking at a flower through his camera and the father's camera. And so this is kind of hinting at like we've broken the cycle a little bit, getting all the photos and all the pieces put together, but we're still kind of like not in the true ending that we need, because the game again is just going to start over at this point. So there's actually another ending that we need to discuss, and this is what I consider the true ending of the game. For this ending, we have to solve 4 puzzles that are going to match up what just happened. You have to have this first ending to get the true ending. If you look at the bottom of the cube now, we have kind of wires sticking up at the bottom. And we're going to go through 4 puzzles to line those up. And when that happens, cube is going to pulse like a heart, and it's going to shatter on that side. And we need to do that for each side of the cube. And once we finish every single side of this, we're going to get the true ending. And then that is the true ending of the game, and I love it. It's so powerful. It gives me goosebumps every time I see it. So basically what happened is when we finally broke the cage and broke the box, broke out of the cycle of PTSD and trauma, we are met with the man when he wakes up in the hospital after serving time in the military. So we're back. We've backtracked. He hasn't adopted his son. He didn't go through the alcoholism, nothing like that. We backtrack to when he's waking up in the hospital. And when he wakes up, he's waking up from a dream of being trapped inside of a cage, going through this cycle, and finally at the end, the flower falls on him. He wakes up in a panic, and when he wakes up, he looks at the TV, and it's people celebrating because the war is finally over. Like, he's done his time, he's served, and he did what he went to achieve, was to fix the things that he thought he did wrong when he created the missile and stuff like that. So he's waking up to this world where the war is finally over and peace is here. We see that on the desk, the flower is in full bloom. It's not wilted this time. It's actually there and thriving. And when he throws open the window, it's a complete field of flowers. And again, this is our symbol of hope. So it's just hope. The minute he opens the window, it's just hope outside his window and into his future. And this is the true ending of breaking that loop that he was stuck in, having to face PTSD over and over again. And this marks the end of the game. I love the ending that it like breaks the cycle. We love to see growth in mental health treatment. We love those. But yeah, I appreciate you guys watching, and we will see you. Bye bye.